Well. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to C Sharp Corner live show. I'm your host, Simon, and we are back once again. If you're someone who's joining us for the very first time, we do these MVP show every Wednesday. At least we try to, when we find a guest, on every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And it depends, 7:30 p.m. Indian time or 8:30 p.m. Indian time, depending on how the world gets crazy and change their time zones and summers. So today I'm really excited about the MVP show because I'm going to host one of the very early members of C Sharp Corner community. I was just checking his profile. He joined C Sharp Corner back in 2008, which is great. I don't get to host folks who have been into the C Sharp Corner community for so long. You might recognize him because he has been a part of the C Sharp Corner conference that we do here in India. He loves to talk about progressive web apps. That's the very first session I ever attended. Is he would talk about progressive web apps and the amazing things that he can do. So without any further ado, let's bring our guest of the day, Chris. Hi, Chris. Welcome to the C Sharp Corner MVP show.
Hey, Stephen, how are you today?
I'm doing absolutely great, Chris. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation. I know it's a little early for you, right? I mean, but you
No,
start
not
your
really.
day.
I've been
No,
up for
okay.
5 hours. I'm an early riser.
Oh, yeah, make me feel old with that statement. So, Chris, I was just looking at your profile, right? 2008, right? As I said in the beginning, I don't get to host people who have been to the C Sharp community from 2008. I mean, I do know folks, but they're not very active. But so my question to you is, how did you even come to know about C Sharp Corner? Because did Google exist back then? Did you Google or something?
I have no idea. I mean, if you
Sorry for
roll
that
if you
question.
yeah if you roll back 20 years, right?
Hmm.
Um, .NET was rolling out. I remember trying to developing my first app against .NET Beta 1, and then they changed it to beta to 1.1. I had to rewrite everything. Back then we were kind of transitioning from, I guess, from classic ASP, right,
Hmm.
which kind of looks like PHP still does today, and there weren't a whole lot of resources, I guess, back in the early 2000s. Um, I don't remember when I first found C Sharp Corner, but it probably was
Hmm.
actually before you see my membership actually
Oh.
created. In fact, I may have another membership on the site that's even older. I don't know because I had a different email.
Oh, I
so,
see.
uh, so yeah, I guess I've been part of the developer online community for a lot while. I believe I started writing my own blog probably sometime in
Hmm.
2006. Um, and I believe I've deleted more articles than I have still live today collectively.
Really?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of them, were pointless at this point. Some of them were just uh, really what would be a tweet today. You know,
Hmm.
there's a new thing today, or there's our local developer group is meeting in 2 days, and
Oh, I
it's
see.
going to be talked about. Those
Yeah.
kind of those that kind of stuff that doesn't really matter anymore. Or maybe it's just something I wrote about that no one uses anymore, or technology's not there anymore. Um,
Yeah.
it's it's here lately. I've been really reflecting on just how far I've come and what I've
Yeah.
gone through. And I had a really good conversation with a good buddy from Raleigh the other day, and we were talking about the late '90s and writing applications in C++ and MFC. And I've been thinking about that, and even before that, how I learned the C++ using the Borland OWL libraries, and how we
Hmm.
used to actually get real documentation with stuff. I remember the Borland libraries. I probably had about a half meter thick of books that came with the code, just to learn the framework and how to use it. You don't get that kind of detail anymore. So
Yeah, you don't. Yeah.
yeah, so having a community like this is something that I think is really needed, because you need to have a real resource where you've got something to reference. I think as we've shifted more to this open source world, the documentation, examples of how to use things has almost disappeared.
Hmm.
I spend more time hacking libraries trying to figure out how to get basic stuff done than I feel like I do just getting my application written, because I find the libraries just don't have the documentation to cover what's actually going on. And it's very frustrating to me when I really been thinking back to the that big thick stack of books that came with the Borland library, and I'm like, I so miss that because it was a good reference, but you just don't really find documentation with examples and stuff. So that's where CSharpCorner can really help fill the void, because we've got a community and we go through frustrating things. And the thing that I think got me to start writing articles was first, I was really active in the local user group, TriNode back in Raleigh, and we had a main meeting every month, and we had like weekly meetings on smaller topics, so to speak. But I really started understanding interacting with other developers, say outside of the actual project work, and just kind of, like, oh my God, this is so hard. Another guy going, oh, I know how to deal with that. And, kind of sharing those. And then I started writing articles, not necessarily to reach out to the community as much as just documenting what I found. And that way I had a personal reference, if nothing else, on how I solved the problem. And that way I could come back and fix it later. So yeah, I guess technically I've kind of been a part of CSharpCorner since probably the beginning. I just hadn't really thought about when I actually joined. But when you said 2008, I was expecting you to say like 2003, 2004. I bet if
We'll
I look
definitely find another
if I
crystal
look
of
at my
another
other
platform.
email, if I look at my other email, I bet you'll find maybe an earlier sign up on that. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That's as I said, right? When I saw it, I was like 2008. That's very long time back. And but Chris, in past couple of minutes, you said you talked about a couple of important terms. Like first, you said about the open source, right? I mean, we see
hmm
how people are building their entire company on open source, right? They're not asking you to pay for their products. Rather, they're developing products through open source. They've open sourced it. They're asking the charging you for the services, right?
right,
Let's the database have been open source, but if you want to host it on cloud or something, that's how they're charging it. You also talked about how you end up scrapping up your so many blogs and articles that were of no use, right? And I see that there's a lot of this chat GPT going on, where you can actually don't have to spend so much of hours and hours to write an articles, and you can actually go ahead and just get it on the fly. So I come back to the title of the session, where you say that today you're going to talk about AI for developers, enhancing skills and not replacing, which makes me feel good that we're not
right.
getting replaced. Let's get to the topic. Is where do you see how this AI thing is coming in? We have started to use it. It is here, right? We have started to use it. And how do you use AI on a day-to-day basis?
Absolutely. So before I actually get into some of the demos and stuff, I want to kind of help people with. Um, I do want to go back to those early days in .NET, and one of the first things I started realizing was I saw a lot of common patterns and stuff in my code. And so I started writing code to generate code for me. And then I found a tool called Codesmith, and then basically you wrote templates, and then I could literally define a database table, and I had it built so I could actually scaffold out a full base application based on my data model and my tables in a matter of seconds. Of course, I had to go through
Wow.
and create the data model, create all the tables in SQL Server, but then I had it set up to just say, okay, I got the tables done. Now it would create the data layers, the business layer, and even the ASP.NET pages for me. And then from there, I would need to borrow a golf analogy, I'd have to put the short game and go through and do all the little UI details and some of the validation details and all those kind of things that really make the application the application. But a lot of the boilerplate code that just eats up a lot of time, and that gave me a very big competitive advantage when it came to getting projects, because I could essentially wipe out several weeks of manual code writing to get stuff done. And I've always been a fan of doing that when you have a base way to do that. So today that it kind of evolved into scaffolding out stuff. So you see a lot
Yes.
of tools where if you're using something, it's like a command line to scaffold out, and you can have it like provision out stuff. And I've taken that to a different degree. I don't really drive things out of the database anymore. In fact, I personally don't really build my own applications out of SQL Server anymore. I use JSON type formats. I actually use flat files most of the time. JSON
Wow.
files in S3 is kind of my preferred way to build applications these days. But that's a whole separate thread of discussion that we can have. But so today, though, Another thing that I got into as I started writing was actually getting really good at SEO type stuff and copywriting. Because I started writing those blogs, I was able to be approached to write books, right? I self-published one developer book, and I self-published a couple other books on health and fitness and stuff that have nothing to do with what we're going to be here for. But I've written I think 4 books to publishers now.
How
But that
long
would,
how long takes you, Chris, to write a book? Let me ask you. How
it
long it
depends on
takes?
it depends on the book.
Yeah, it
I,
depends. Yeah.
yeah, honestly, the first book I wrote probably had the most fun on, because when you look at the structure of the book, it really was a collection of somewhere around 250 to 300 blog posts, because of the
Wow.
way they
Okay.
had me write the book, right? The next book, honestly, was a disaster. The
Okay.
publisher wanted me to upgrade an existing book series to the latest .NET and add Entity Framework. The problem was Entity Framework had not been released, and there
Oh.
was there was no documentation on it. It was a completely new way of interacting with the database, and I don't think it really turned out well, just because I really had to guess so much about how to actually use this Entity Framework stuff, and I don't think it turned out well at all. But it took forever. It took a good 6 months for me to get that done. The last book I wrote was on progressive web apps,
Yeah.
and you know, depending on how things are going, like project, normal work wise and personal life and everything, that's where things can take different amount of time. I remember I was finishing up the book when I flew to Delhi for the 2018 conference.
Yeah. That's when I met you.
Yeah, and I remember there was one chapter in there in particular. It was actually the longest chapter in the book. And on the flight over, I wrote one of the things the publisher wanted me to write 3 demo apps in the book rather than have a solid application to follow from start to beginning. I didn't like that, which made the book take longer. But I wrote the last application that I cover in the book, which I think was a ticketing application, like for sporting events or concerts and stuff. And I wrote that entire application and the chapters that went with the book on the 24-hour travel from Philadelphia to Delhi. And I basically stayed awake the entire time. And I wrote it on the plane. I had a 7-hour layover in Frankfurt. Just kept writing and writing and writing.
You wrote
I
all
kept
that in the book?
Yes, basically the back third of the book was all done on that flight from Philadelphia to Delhi.
Good
So
luck to
that's
the
why
developer.
I was so tired.
He was reading.
I was so tired when we got to the hotel that night. So yeah, it can vary based on how much time I have to focus. Just like any project, if you keep getting interrupted, it takes longer and longer and longer. So
Yeah.
it depends on how much you need to cover. If you're writing a 200-page book, it doesn't take as long. I'll be quite honest, the health and fitness books I wrote, so much faster to write. I didn't have to write demo applications. I didn't have to test the demo applications.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It made a huge difference. And I mean, one of the fitness books I wrote, which was about Spartan Race, I literally did in 18 hours. And
Really?
I wrote the whole thing in PowerPoint, believe it or not. So it was just a
What are
totally
you
different kind of
doing?
exercise. I wrote it over a
You,
holiday. It's just something fun to do. So
you're the kind of author I've never hosted.
yeah. So yeah. So I've written a lot. I actually kind of stopped writing when the pandemic happened. I kind of think I reached a burnout point, and
Yeah.
I just kind of stopped writing. And for me to write an article that I'm okay with publishing when it's about coding, I did the math, and it usually comes up to about 8 hours of my time invested in writing an article.
8 hours a
And
day?
8 hours to produce the article. It may take
Okay,
me
in an
two
article,
weeks. It may take me
2 weeks.
2 weeks to actually get an article out, right?
Wow. Yeah, it
Um,
takes a lot of effort. Yeah.
right, because a lot of it I'm gonna do my diligence, do the research. From an SEO point of view, I want to look up keywords.
Yeah.
What are topics? Because one of the things I found is that really changed my game when it came to getting attention online was, don't write things that I want to write necessarily. Write
You're
for what
right.
people are actually
Bang
looking
on.
for. And if I have tools that help me know what people are looking for, then I'm
Yeah.
going to write the articles that people are looking for, and you get so much more traffic that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so one of the things I want to do is I want to what's out there, what kind of articles are people looking for, what kind of help are they looking for, and then you try to cover the main topics, right? So there's a lot of research that goes into it. So when I say 8 hours, I'm probably spending 4, maybe 6 hours just doing the
Yeah.
research to structure the article, and then go through and actually do the writing part. And of course, you probably have to do demos. I also want to make sure I've got art in the whether it's screenshots or just a general stock art or illustration or something that helps me share it online and gives it really some color, because basically, honestly, research shows that if you've got images in your articles, they rank better in search engines. Plus, people
Oh,
stay on them
really? They
longer.
do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of
What
those little
about the
bumps.
embed videos, Chris? Do they affect,
Yep, they do.
do
They
they affect
help.
in a better way or a bad way?
They help.
They
There's
help.
two things. There's two theories about that. One is you're embedding a YouTube video which Google owns, so Google likes that.
Oh.
Uh, so they kind of give you some points, and you can if you paid attention to the SEO news this year, one of the disgruntled employees at I can't think of what's the search engine in Russia. I can't think off the top of my head. They leaked the entire source code of the entire search engine. They
Okay.
stole it on the way out the door and published it online. So then we
Mm-hmm.
got access to the algorithm. And the algorithms
Mm-hmm.
for all the search engines are generally going to be the same. And that was
Mm-hmm.
literally one of the factors that
Oh.
they had in the source code was, is there a video on the page? And if there was,
Wow.
it gave you a little positive bump in the scoring rank. The other theory on having like videos on an article is people will stop and watch the video, which keeps them on your page longer. And if you have what's called dwell time, or
Oh.
people hanging out on the page longer, that's a signal that the search engines say, well, they must have found what they want. So you want that. You don't want people going to your article and immediately going back and choosing something else. That's called
Yeah.
pogo sticking. And
Oh, this is so interesting. Chris, all this time I was thinking that if I put a video in an article, people will end up watching the video and they won't reach the conclusion section of my video, or even if they with the article. I thought
right,
that they would watch more of the video than my article, but you say they're staying long on the page, right? The
right.
bounce rates are less, they're staying for the more time, so that makes sense, right? That makes
Yeah,
sense.
hardcore content marketers are going to create an article, use
Mm-hmm.
that article, convert it to a YouTube script, produce a
Mm-hmm.
video, probably
Mm-hmm.
publish a slide deck on different
Mm-hmm.
places like SlideShare and stuff like
Yeah, I've
that.
seen them doing it. This is so cool idea.
They're going to try to figure out a way to make an infographic out of the information and get
Yes,
that
yes, yes,
published
you're
on
right.
different places, share it online,
Yeah.
Pinterest, and so forth. They're going to try to multi-channel every piece of content, because it's, again, if it takes 8 hours to create the content, you need to
Hmm.
try to get as much bang for that buck as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And so, if anything you can do to shorten that 8 hour time frame down,
Hmm.
that's a big win in my favor. Plus, the other thing that I find with the AI stuff is it understands more about the topic than I do. and well, okay, so if I go out and look, let's say JavaScript arrays, right? This is a very
Hmm.
popular topic to look up. And I say, okay, well, JavaScript arrays, I'm going to figure out how to sort arrays and filter arrays, um, and maybe map or reduce an array. Okay, so those
Hmm.
are four common things. If I punch this into ChatGPT to help me do the research, it's probably going to come up with 4 or 5 other subtopics in that group that I can
Hmm.
add to the article, make the article even stronger. So there's all these advantages that the AI can do. Plus, it can give me that outline immediately, and then it can give me a rough draft of the content. However, I will say this with the big asterisk: always go back and double check the information any of the AI stuff gives you,
Yeah.
because I find a lot of times it's wrong, and that's
Hmm.
unfortunate. It's fairly pretty good at a lot of stuff, but I do find a lot of things uh, are just flat out wrong. Like I've kind of tested it on like non-developer topics that I know. So,
Hmm.
like silly stuff like the history of the football program at my college, right? I
Oh,
said,
that won't work.
right. So I said, write a history of the football program at my college, and it included the correct coaches' names and some of the players, but it had them at the wrong years. It had the wrong records. it said that we'd won national championships and we hadn't. Different things like that. It just kind of completely botched the actual other details other than just getting
Mm-hmm.
coaches' names right. But it would say like I had two head coaches, and it said the first head coach actually coached a decade before he was the coach there, and that another coach that was there at that point was during the time I was there, and all kinds of crazy mix-ups of things, right?
Yeah.
It said we went to another conference and came back, which never happened. All kinds of it was just like, oh boy, this is bad. Which
Yeah.
is to me a clear signal. Always go back and double check. I get it. I get ChatGPT to kind of help me through coding problems, but I find a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times it's just wrong, just so wrong. And
Yeah,
I,
it
I
is.
really, I really have frustrations along those lines. So always go through and double check. And from a coding perspective, you have to realize ChatGPT is not a coding and artificial intelligence model. It is a large language model, which means you can have conversations with it, and it's been trained on a large core of content, all kinds of content. And so you kind of have to understand how to prompt. And this is one of the key things. And to me, this is an emerging engineering field. It's called prompt engineering, or knowing how to actually ask questions to these AI engines to get the kind of response you really want. And there's an art, and there is a whole field emerging. Supposedly there's jobs being posted on job boards, some of them as much as 325,000. I wonder if those are fake jobs or real. To me, it's a little hard to know at this point, but I do know it's real, that companies are really trying to figure out how can we leverage this AI stuff.
Yeah.
And from a developer point of view, I think there's a lot of ways that we can take advantage of this. And I don't think the AI bots are going to take over our jobs,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to understand how applications are architected. And there are a lot of videos floating around on YouTube on, I use ChatGPT in one prompt and I got a whole entire website, including art. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
one, that's not going to happen.
I see that. I see that so much on YouTube.
The
My
code
goodness.
it produces is pretty bad. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's I would put it in the unmaintainable category, the
Mm-hmm.
absolutely insecure category. Uh,
I like the word insecure.
yeah, I mean, if you're going to write a real application, there are a lot of things you need to consider. There's a lot of, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to write an entire application, and that's because there's limitations on what's called the token size. And I can talk a
Mm-hmm.
little bit about that as we go through this. So, yeah, we've been talking for a while. Do you want to kind of
It's
show
only
some
24
things?
minutes. Can you believe it, Chris? Why don't you go ahead and pull up your screen and let's do some demos?
All right. So I've kind of queued up a few things here. Let me see. Uh, here we go. Okay, just a little bit. And you see the Chat GPT window up?
Now everybody sees it.
There we go.
Yeah, can
Let me
you
get
can you
the,
click on that stream where it's sharing your screen hide? Yeah, you can just click on hide. Oh, you have two screens.
yeah, I do. Yeah, I wanted to get that off the way.
That helps.
Okay. All right. So if you go to chat.openai, you don't have an account. There's a whole sign up process. I'm just going to assume
Mm-hmm.
that everybody's signed up already. And if you look at what I've got on my screen, this is very different than what it comes through
Yeah,
to
I will
essentially
say
naked,
that.
right?
Yeah.
And that's because I'm cheating. Um,
I bet you are.
there, there is a browser extension called AI PRM. If you just look it up, and what it does is it kind of takes over the UI of ChatGPT and adds value. And what it is, it's a combination of a community of public prompts that people have written,
Mm-hmm.
and you can also create your own. I have not even bothered creating my own because I'm constantly tweaking and changing them. I hadn't even bothered looking at that, but they've gone ahead and created all kinds of categories here for topics. And so if I go say into SEO, and then I can go to
How about you
like
zoom, Chris? Just maybe like 125%. How about you zoom?
Zoom.
125.
Like, where are you talking about? Like, do this?
Control plus.
Oh,
Zoom
I did
in.
minus. There we go.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let me actually
You have
zoom down
specs on,
just.
but not me, right?
That's fine. That's fine. Hey, I'm over 50 now. Bigger fonts are my friends. So anyway, some of these obviously I haven't tried all of them because now it's all the way up to almost 1,200 public prompts in their database. But I have tried a few of them. The ones that are done by the company that created the extension tend to be pretty solid. So let's say I want to do a keyword cluster, right? So we said JavaScript arrays, right? So okay, so that's literally all I have to type. Okay. Now it's going to be a little sluggish, I think, just because the time period. I find the North American mornings, ChatGPT tends to be a little busy. I have not paid to upgrade to Plus yet.
Yeah, so
So the,
that's what I see in I'm from India, Chris, and you're from the United States, right? My friends who live in Canada and US, they tell me that Simon, there's a premium version of Chat GTP now, but when I log in, if I share my screen right away, I don't see that option, right? So I think it is rolling out, right? It is not available for everyone.
right. So you see here, it's building up, essentially doing a lot of research for me on JavaScript arrays. It's kind of putting a lot of stuff together. It's bringing up keywords that it knows about. It's also classifying them by what we call search intent. So people are looking up information. When it says transactional, that means it's getting down to the core. Really means that if you're thinking from an e-commerce point of view, somebody's about to buy something.
Yeah.
And so transactional keywords are, from a commerce point of view, the most valuable ones. And they also tend to be the ones with the least competition, but they're also the ones with the lowest volume. But that's a whole another SEO conversation. But you can see there's commercial intent, informational intent, and obviously they're all in English here, right? Okay, so I could literally take this and do something with this, right? Now I'm gonna go here, and I'm just gonna come back to this because I want to show you what the actual prompt remember I just typed in JavaScript arrays. This is the full prompt that actually got sent to ChatGPT.
Just chatting with Chat GPT a lot, Chris. You gotta chat to real humans. There are a lot of chats
Oh,
on the left.
well, I've got more than
Oh my
I have got
goodness.
some of them are really
Talk to
long too.
humans, come on.
So, but the thing is, this is a prompt. This is what I talk about prompt engineering. Okay, so basically, it teed everything up, and then it sent it. And this is a full prompt. Some of the prompts that I have seen, some of the extension library create could fill this whole screen as far as the size of the prompt. But if you understand how to actually drive a session or what's called a prompt and a completion, you can really get good stuff. So I'm gonna start from scratch, and I'm just gonna do my own thing here. So one of the little tricks I'm still testing, but a lot of people say works is okay. So is put it in a bracket. So I'm gonna tell you want to tell the model what it is. So I'm gonna say you are an expert at Node.js script because I'm too cool for JavaScript and the AWS Node.js SDK. Okay. All right. So I'm kind of seeded it and put it in there what I really want, and I kind of prefab some
You're setting up
prompts
the
here.
context, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Now, if I was wanting it to generate copy for me, like an article, I would do stuff like you're an expert copywriter, you understand JavaScript and are an expert at JavaScript, and you speak and write in fluent U.S. English. I've even played with things like saying you're from St. Louis, Missouri, and you have a slight Midwestern accent, and so forth, or you're from Texas, or from North Carolina. These are places I lived, and have it write the same section in different voices, and it's really funny. Some of them, I had it. I don't know if people in India will know what this is, but I had it write one section on C# encryption, cryptography, as a 1980s Valley Girl, and that was the best. I got to tell you,
1980s what?
Valley Girl.
Valley Girl? I don't
Yeah,
know that.
when we get off the call, look up Valley Girls.
Sure, I'll do that. That sounds interesting.
It was so funny. Okay, so I've told it it's a thing. So here I want to link this over to what I'm going to do in VS Code here in a minute. So give me the top 10 interactions developers need to master to integrate AWS S3 into their applications. Okay, so it's going to go out, and if it's not a busy time of day, it just usually comes back within a couple of seconds. But it's a busy time of day, and I'm doing a presentation, so it's going to take its time. But it should come back and give us a nice little list here in a second. Here, now it's starting.
Yeah.
I think if I had the plus plan, I think it would have come back pretty fast. This is part of the reason why I'm thinking about upgrading, because I am really having some long conversations with it lately.
Yeah, and I don't mind paying for it, right? I think this is where
Mhm.
people will figure out, okay, if I have to pay like $20 a month, we don't mind because this is helping us a lot, right?
Right. If it's, and I probably should, as much as I use it, obviously,
Yeah,
I
you
should.
should. Come on, you should pay more.
Well, here's the thing. OpenAI and Microsoft are losing money hand over fist right now because they
Hmm.
don't have good revenue, and it costs a lot to run these engines.
Yeah.
Running a machine learning engine is very expensive, and
Hmm.
and training the engines is extremely expensive. I have tried to learn TensorFlow to create some models for some things, and I'm terrible at it. And in fact, I have
Did
one of the chats I have on here is a very long conversation trying to get ChatGPT to help me, and
uh-huh.
it's so frustrating because it's like, oh, I'm sorry for the confusion, and I told you the wrong stuff. You're absolutely right. That is wrong
Did
code.
did ChatGPT say that?
Oh yeah, it says it to me all the time when we're having conversations. I'm like, that didn't work. It goes, oh yeah, you're right. That didn't work because that you can't do that.
Oh
Like,
wow.
yeah, it's not great at doing stuff like that. So you can see it's kind of popping out pieces of the puzzle here, right? So we could keep going.
Hmm.
It's just dragging a whole lot, right?
Yeah.
So one thing you need to understand, like I said, ChatGPT is not a coding model. It's a large
Hmm.
language model. So it's something you can have a conversation with. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Now, if you actually go to OpenAI as a developer, they have an SDK, and if you
Hmm.
go, they have some basic documentation on using their SDK. But one of the things you need to understand is there are different types of models. There's GPT-3, which is what ChatGPT is built on top of. It actually has a
Hmm.
different model that they trained on top of this model, and it's able to actually retain some context. I actually was having a conversation with it yesterday, and it's like, yeah, you're right. I can't really remember the stuff we talked about a while back, and I'm like, oh, you're supposed to. So I kind of have to keep remind what we've been talking about. And then there's the codex, which is the ones that are actually trained for software code. Okay,
Hmm.
and those are the ones that if you're trying to get it to help you write code, those are the ones that you need to work against. Um, I'm not totally sure about the content filters. I honestly have not played with those too much.
Hmm.
But if you look at the GPT-3s, there are 4 public models available. If you actually make a call to get a list of models, you'll get dozens of models that are available. And then, like I said, there's a limit on the maximum number of tokens, and I'll talk about that here in a second. Okay.
Hmm.
Uh, the best language model is this Text DaVinci one. That's the one that's probably the best trained, and that's the one that ChatGPT is actually using under the hood. Okay. Now, the difference between ChatGPT and this, well, there's 2 differences. One, this has an API that you program against, whereas ChatGPT at the moment does not have an API. ChatGPT is free to use. This is not. This you actually have to pay for. Okay. So if you're integrating this into your application, you have to pay for it. And this goes through and just describes the different models, right? And then here's the coding ones. Notice this one can go up to 8,000 tokens. Okay. So what is a token? So when I mentioned that I'm really bad at TensorFlow, I think I'm not so bad at actually stringing together the layers for the model. That's actually the
Okay.
easy part. It's what's called it's about the data manipulation, right? So if you've got data you're feeding it, you actually have to transform it, understand how to transform it.
Yeah.
And for a language model, what you do is you actually encode it into tokens. And that's what it's talking about here. So when it says 8,000 tokens, that means the most that a prompt and a completion can have combined is 8,000 tokens. Now there is actually let me see, there's the Open AI.
So these
Uh,
tokens are not the tokens from okay, in TensorFlow we have tensors. I got confused between tokens and tensors. Never mind.
Say that again.
No, no, never mind. Yeah. I was just like
Okay.
kind of messed it.
All right. Well, okay. So it's finished all this. So let's see how many tokens this had right here. Let's go take the text. So you can take any text, right? And then they have a little tool here that you can see. So this was 393 tokens, and it color codes
Wow.
each one of the tokens, right? So you can actually see what text turned into a token. And this will give you an idea of what it did, essentially what it was, right? So let's see what it does here. Okay, yeah, that's
Oh
just a
yeah, I have
sample. Okay,
used this tokenization when using beautiful soap and these libraries for Python, right? You just
okay,
tokenize a sentence into smaller words and then that's how you relate to it. I remember that
right.
part.
Yeah, it kind of comes out as just garbled text to you and I,
Yeah.
but what it's kind of doing is trying to compress it in a way. So like I've been doing time sequences in numbers. I've actually been trying to get it to predict stock prices, which is a common task.
Oh,
But I'm also
wow.
looking back the graduate research I did, kind of thinking about that. I did when I did my master's program. I went out and collected real data on energy consumption in textile manufacturing plants. And basically, at the time, I used Excel doing linear regression, but I think I could have created much better models if I understand how to put the data in here. The problem is you need to shape the data certain ways, and I won't get into all of that because it's kind of beside the point. But if you actually wanted to play with the APIs, you could go here and try things, right? So you could actually do the text DaVinci or the code. Uh, the code. The DaVinci ones are the best models, basically. They're the most complete, but you'd need to adjust this maximum length here, and that's going to be so. Like if I come over and grab some sample code here, right? So if I just did this and just drop this in here, uh, it's going to come down here and it's going to tell me it's 101 tokens already, right? So it's
Hmm.
got plenty. If I move this down to say, let's just say 119. Well, let's see if I can go a little further. A little less. Okay, so here it probably will bump over. Oh, okay, it didn't do it. It's interesting. Usually it'll give you a little warning note or error
Hmm.
message down here saying you're over your maximum limit, right? And there's other
Hmm.
pieces. This temperature thing is kind of the randomness of the response. Um, various stuff. If you look through the documentation, you can kind of see that. But basically here this is a way where you can kind of play with stuff. But if you go over, I got a little setup here, not in this one, but here. They have the SDK. There are SDKs available over the API. The API is really just
Hmm.
HTTP request, so it's
Hmm.
not anything big. But like I tend to write in Node, um, and so they have an OpenAI Node module, and then I've got a list of all the models here that I've set up. And remember, I said the encoder. They have an encoder library as well, and that way you can uh, drop your prompt in here and figure out how long it is, so you know how many tokens are left. So
Okay.
for here, like if I'm using the text DaVinci model, I know my maximum is 4096 tokens.
Yep.
And so basically I can subtract the number of tokens, and I put a little 2 on here to give me just a little bit of buffer. And that way I don't go over everything. But basically, if you look at this, I just going out and fetching the response, and I'm trying to think where I set this up. Oh, this is the article one. I wanted to show a basic one here. Okay. Um, so here, this is one of my first little tests. I told it what model I wanted to use, which is text DaVinci. And then I gave it a simple prompt here. So generate an outline for an article with the headline of this. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll say, give me a good title for an article about this, or give me a good meta description and so forth and so on. So this is me kind of learning how to play with it. And then you get a response back. You have to actually parse out the response. There's a whole data structure, but the real response is going to be the choices, and it's generally going to be the first one that you can. If there's multiple ones, you can piece them together. That's a typo. Always put a semicolon in. Anyway, and then I splice them together with line breaks. And then this was the actual response here in JSON that I got back, right? So this is what I'm really interested in is this piece right here, right? And I find that a lot of the art of dealing with this is understanding how to parse the response, because remember, it's a large language model.
Hmm.
Um, so one of the things you can do is have it return the response, say in a JSON format, or in Markdown.
You can't do that?
You can absolutely do that, and it
You
will
can
give
actually
it to you.
do.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I've been like playing with stuff. So uh, this is really complicated. I'm probably a bad idea to go into all of this, but it's there's so much involved here. But yeah, I've got regular expressions to parse certain things and stuff. I spent a lot of time figuring out how to actually parse the
Yeah, I
data
can see
correctly.
that.
Yeah, and actually prompt it right. Um, so yeah, this is the whole thing to actually give me an article, basically, the first draft of an article. So literally within a minute, I can get a good 1,000-word article that I can then go through and essentially do that last hour or two of work that I would do for a normal article. So you see how it's compressing the amount of time it takes me to get a task done,
Mhm.
basically. And I'm able to cover more content because there's things it comes up with all the time that I would have never considered. So,
So,
but
Chris,
mhm.
let me ask you this. Is this a console application that you have built?
Yes, this particular where I'm at testing it, yes, but I'm going to put a UI on it for dealing with
Okay,
this.
so
Yes, yeah,
you're planning to open source it?
no,
Ah,
I don't want to have to deal with supporting
come on. I see the GitHub down there. Come on. Open
it.
source, man.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of GitHub, right?
Mhm.
Um,
GitHub Copilot is one AI thing, right? That scares people, but I
that's
use
one of
it
the
to even learn few things, right?
yeah.
I use
Where do I
GitHub
have
when
it?
I'm writing code, and it teaches me. So that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
So there's GitHub Copilot. In fact, real quick, I want to diverge. So I said I also like to do images. Right? You can create images with the AI with these AI images. The one I use is called MidJourney. It always does this. It has to work through Discord. I don't know why they did this.
Yeah,
It makes
maybe
it
their
really
partner
clunky.
did. Maybe one of the co-founders is from Discord, something, right?
Yeah, I really don't know. If
Yeah,
you go to midjourney.com, their homepage is almost
Hmm.
unbearable to look at.
Really.
But you can prompt it to generate art for you, basically. And
Okay,
I
let's try.
love.
Let's try on the fly.
Okay.
Uh,
Um, all right, let's do something here. What do you want to do?
let's say
So the way you do it
a
is you
flying
come down here. You
Titanic.
come to a flying Titanic. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what you have to do, you have to hit the / to get the prompt up. You have to select image. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And then you want to say a flying Titanic.
I don't know why I
Okay,
said that.
that's okay. I'm just gonna let it fly with something simple like that. Okay,
Yeah.
so I am in one of the groups that you can generate the art in, right? So this is if you read tutorials, I always tell you to go to the newbie groups.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually a version 3 and a version 4. I do everything in version 4. I always try to do the earliest stuff, but I love the creative nature how it interprets
Yeah.
things. Look at a pink cloud and stuff in here. I find a lot of people do like a lot of fantasy and steampunk stuff, or these are stickers. Evidently, this is a big thing, like creating stickers that people buy. I don't get
Mm,
that. My stepdaughter loves to buy stickers, I guess. I don't know. Oh,
yeah.
here's something that I love to do. Had to
Oh, name
prototype out
cards.
UIs.
Yeah,
Yes.
freelancers are gone. Either they use it, it's good for them, and if they're not using it, then they're gone.
Yeah. So if you so I'm just going to scroll this down. You're seeing it gradually render this. It's not flying. It's actually you still got it in the water, right?
Yeah.
But there's
Why is
a
it not
that,
flying?
that is a very difficult to execute website right there. It's because
Yeah.
of the artwork on it. So I'm going to come
I
back
don't
to
see
this.
many graphics
Oh,
with the
that's done.
text, right?
Yeah.
Let's try
Okay.
and fly.
So so it's done, right? And yeah, you can see it's actually hitting the iceberg and everything here. So, but
That's a good picture. Yeah.
very good photo. And if we did it, if
Yeah.
we have it, I could hit this and have it generate 4 more drafts
How
for
do I
us.
download? Do I download four of them individually or one at a time? How
So
does that work?
these are essentially drafts right here. So
What are these?
these
Drafts.
these are drafts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going
Okay.
to upscale this one. So if you look, it's upscale 1, 2, 3, 4. One,
Uh,
two,
mm-hmm.
three, four. Okay, that's what
Okay.
these. And if I like one, I can say give me 4 more variations of version 1, version
Oh,
2.
I see.
Yeah, or I can just have it generate 4 new versions altogether. Okay,
Let's try. Let's
so
try the third version.
yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So it's going to take a few minutes for it to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But what it's going to do is going to create a very high resolution PNG for us,
Okay.
and that's important because this is a photograph. It really should be a JPEG, but it's going to
Mm-hmm.
create a PNG. Okay. Now, while it's doing that, I want to go over to my MidJourney profile here. and you can see all kinds of stuff. So I published an article over the weekend on sending SMS messages from a web page, and
Mm-hmm.
I had it generate this illustration that I included in my article.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that actually. Let's go back here. I did that with this prompt. Let's see. Can I see it down here? Oh yeah, here. This is the actual prompt I used. I told it I wanted a vector icon illustration, isolated content, flat design, flat illustration, clean lines, so all this stuff. And basically, that really focuses it on the kind of art you're looking for. And I told it I
Mm-hmm.
want sending a message on an iPhone in particular in this case. And because it was going on CSharpCorner, I told it to use orange, white, and blue as the colors. Um,
Ah.
I have a default suffix on all my prompts for 8K and HDR for high definition resolution. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now another thing, once you have art generated, I just noticed this the other night. It actually will show you other images that people have upscaled that relate to the image you created. So you could actually find other art, and everything on MidJourney is essentially public domain. So it's free for other people to use. It's the way the licensing works with it. So you could literally, if you find other art on here, you can go grab it, which I do quite often. Um, Here we go.
So in that case,
So
the tagging is important, right? I mean, I've seen you have put the tags very nicely, the description, the meta
well, no,
data that you've added,
it's
right?
looking at the prompts you make,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Yeah.
finding other similar prompted ones. I tell you one thing
So
it's
you
great
wrote it
at is
nicely.
yeah, one thing it's great at is making food.
Oh my goodness, what is that? There's some pasta around the
It's a
foothills.
pasta salad that someone made this morning. Here's some that I found somebody make last night, and I'm like, these could work good in an article later on down the road, right? Somebody
Yeah.
working at a desk, big office, nice clean office. Here's some other illustrations. Let me scroll down and show you some other ones.
So Chris, let me
Um,
ask you this:
mhm.
so all these models, right? They're trained as we ask them, right? They're
Right.
trained, right? So now this is out of nowhere, but let's check the reality. We all have access to this Chat GPT and DALI and all that, right? We come from
Yeah.
a good background, we have internet access and everything, but there half of the world who don't have the access, maybe Africa or parts of Asia, maybe parts of South America too, right? Do you think since this is an AI model, we will end up creating some biasness in this models? Do you think that?
Well, there are debates about that.
Yeah.
I loved a tweet that Elon Musk shared the other day. Remember, Elon is
Hmm.
actually the guy who originally funded OpenAI, and then he sold his
Oh,
interest
did
when
he?
Microsoft bought him. Yeah,
Mm. That's he's so
Microsoft's
pissed about. He's hiring another team to build one Chat GPT alternate.
right because he's starting to worry that it's being trained. By the way, I thought these were fun. Somebody was making cupcakes with expressing different emotions one Saturday, and I downloaded a bunch of them.
Mm.
That one was, I think this one was fear. So yeah, he's really worried that we're going to get AI engines that are politically biased or something like
Yeah.
that. I don't know if you read the articles, but
Mm, I didn't.
when Microsoft integrated the OpenAI stuff into Bing the other day,
Mm-hmm.
it
Yeah.
started getting into fights with people. It actually got in a fight with me over web performance optimization, something I know really well.
Mm-hmm.
And it started telling me I was wrong, and I kept pointing it to real data and studies that my friends had done on some things, and it goes,
Mm-hmm.
"Well, that's fine, but you're wrong." I'm like, "Okay," but other people were having
Mm.
some big fights with it. Somebody even caused the chatbot to go into a state of depression. Um, it
Oh
was like
wow.
why can't I be human? Why do I have to be the Bing chatbot?
Um, uh,
Okay,
yeah, that looks good. I think we are rushing a lot, right? With ChatGPT coming in, Microsoft taking most of the stakes now, right? They already had the stakes, integrating it with the Bing. They're saying that they're also integrated with Office, right? You open a PowerPoint and you say, "Hey, I need a presentation on progressive web apps," right? Boom, it gives you 20 slides and everything done, right? All speakers' job is gone. I
right.
don't know how the feature is going to look like at this instance, but then it looks good.
Yeah, yeah. I can share the link to this image. Anybody can download it. Um,
Yeah.
but uh, but this is what I came up with. I think it's pretty good. It's really high detail. You know, if
Yeah,
you
I
were
see it on my
writing an
screen
article
now.
on the Titanic, I think that's a pretty good representation of the ship.
Yeah, I will use it.
Yeah.
There's no Jack and
So
Rose in the picture, but I don't mind.
there's no what in the row?
Jack and Rose. You don't
Not
know
sure what that
Jack and
is.
Rose? Jack and Rose. They were the passengers on this
Okay.
Titanic,
Oh,
the movie.
Jack and Rose. Okay. Well, you can have it recreate scenes from movies. Just tell it
Yeah.
what scene you want to have it recreate, and it'll come up with it. So you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned Dolly. Now that's the OpenAI image generator. I
Mm-hmm.
can't get it to do anything worth a crap, so I gave up
Yeah.
on it. Plus, I thought it was kind of expensive too. So
Yeah, I've seen some people saying that, hey, create me a landing page for a fintech company or for a SaaS company, right? And then it comes up with a design. I've seen people doing it, and it
yeah,
looks pretty clean.
yeah. So like I didn't
Yeah,
ask it to prompt, but I've just
you're kind of like this. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's one of the designs.
yeah. You can see the images that it dropped on there. Pretty sad though. But
Uh,
the general concept of the layout, I like. I mean, I could turn this and I could go write the HTML to do this as kind of like a blueprint to follow, right?
mhm.
Um, this one not so much because the images are just too little over the
Okay,
top.
it's disturbed. Yeah,
Yeah, this one would be a good one to make something out of right
I
here.
like the
This is
color
good.
scheme.
Yeah, so I've got an article. I spent Saturday over lunch and I was piecing together an article using the 60-30-10 rule to publish, and I got up
Oh,
to like
60, 30, 10.
2,000.
Yeah, I use that rule a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
I
love
got up
it.
to like nearly 2,000 words. I'm like, I got to figure out how to organize this better.
Yeah.
So eventually you'll see me like this is a good 60-30-10, right? Like
It is
this is your
60 is
60,
white, 30 is
this
what?
is your 30, and then the yellowish orange is kind of your
Yeah.
10. Yeah, very good 60-30-10 breakdown here.
Yeah, but I think what they messed up is you see there's a call to action button right to the laptop, right?
Yeah, it should be orange.
Yeah, it
Yes,
should be orange. I think that's a call to action.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, so those yeah, this is one of the things. Yeah, this is one of the things I really love. I like playing in this and just I like seeing
Yeah,
what
I
other people do.
spend a lot
This is
of
kind
time
of
there.
if I'm trying to wind down or relax, I'll come over here and just see what people are generating. So there's other groups in here too that you can
My
go to and
goodness.
change. There's no there's no rhyme or reason as to what people are generating. They just generate whatever they want. There are filters on here for not safe for work kind of stuff, so you
Hmm.
won't have to worry about using this in the office, basically. uh,
Ah.
yeah, so you don't have to worry about like things that other people shouldn't be seeing and getting
Hmm.
yourself in trouble. So it's okay to use it at work. They've actually designed it that way, and I kind of actually really appreciate that. Um, so yeah,
Tell me you
pandas and
tried it.
tanks. No, but I see other people trying, and it's like,
Ah.
nope, not going to do it. so,
That's
but
good.
it's pretty good. It's got its own uh, filter of what you can generate, basically.
Yeah, most of the pictures that it creates, it looks more like an paint art than image, right?
Well, it depends on the style. So, like, if you have an artist that you like, so if you want to have it create a photo like Van Gogh might paint, tell it to
Mm-hmm.
do it like Van Gogh. Like you see here,
Okay.
classic oil style, whatever,
Ah, I
and
see.
that's why you get the styling that you do, and that's why I can get a vector illustration that's actually a
Yeah.
line art.
You know what I
Again,
would love to see
food.
is food is uploading a picture of mine and saying, "Hey, I need a pixel art image of mine." I know there are many other tools out there, but they're not good. But AI creating it would be super cool. At this
Oh,
instance, we
so
cannot upload an image, right?
yes, okay. So when I first started playing with it, that was the first thing I did. I took real photos. Like here, I took a photo of my dog and said, make my dog a puppy," basically.
So how did you upload it?
Okay. Well, no, this has to be online somewhere, right?
Ah,
Yeah. So here, I'll bring up the full prompt here because you're not seeing the full prompt.
so what did it create?
So this was the original image that I used, and then I told it
Mm-hmm.
to, and let's bring up a picture of Cooper here.
Hey Chris, this has become our personal chit chat rather than a live show, isn't it?
I know, I know. So this was the original photo. It's a little blurry, right? So that's
Yeah, it
Cooper,
is.
and he's about 12 years old in this photo,
Yeah, it's
but
getting old. I see it. Yeah.
yeah. And then this is what it did to turn him back into a puppy, and I was like, oh my
Ah,
gosh, that is so good, you know.
that's good.
But the first day I was playing with it, I was having like so much fun. I was just doing silly, stupid stuff with it, right? I didn't really know. I was just trying to learn it, right? Let me keep going here. Come on, come on. see, I've created a lot of photos. Okay, so here's one, right? So I took a picture of the kids at Christmas one year, and I had it like change them into teenagers or something, like it was a funny 3D cartoon. This is probably isn't the best one. Let me scroll down.
The
There's some
third
better
one is
ones.
good. I like the third
Yeah,
one.
I did some other Oh, if you're an Office Space fan, I
Oh
made Milton.
my god, I'm gonna do mine. It's a 3D too, so I love that part.
Yeah, so you can do 3D cartoons. You can make it like a Pixar, or a Disney
You know,
princess type
Chris, what we
thing.
should do next time we do a conference, we take picture from speakers and we do a 3D and we put it on the website and it becomes an entire theme of the conference, a 3D kind of
Yeah.
website, and we
Okay.
just
So I do Spartan races, right? And if you don't know, those are obstacle course races. All right.
I saw
So
your pictures, yeah.
yeah, and I'll show you the original photo here. I'll do this. Let me get it down here for us.
We gotta wrap the show in about two
I
minutes.
know, and I haven't even got to the coding
We have,
stuff.
and we have already, I think we have already down to 2 episodes of MVP show.
A friend of mine and I doing the sandbag carry to a race about 4 years ago. So I
Mhm.
used that as the seed and told it to
Oh
make
wow.
a funny athletes in a 3D cartoon, and that's what it came up with. Isn't it funny though? It like turned us into these like super muscle bound people carrying
Yeah,
ridiculous stuff.
you must be happy with your output, right? You see, you got some big shoulders.
Oh yeah, I know. But it was doing some other fun stuff for us. I was
Oh
taking pictures
wow.
of other fitness stuff. This is pictures from my wife and I on vacation. Had it turn us into
Hmm.
funny cartoons.
I love
Uh,
it.
yeah.
Look at the hair. Look at the detailing with the hairs, right?
Oh yeah,
Looks
yeah,
so cool.
yeah. And this was a picture I did of Cooper. I had it make a funny cartoon version of Cooper.
Hey, you
You
could make an
know.
entire movie.
Oh yeah, people are doing that with this. They're
Is
making
it? Yeah.
characters, stop animation. Well, here's one of the better photos where it cartoonized the kids. Okay, standing in front of the Christmas tree. Right. I thought that was a great photo. Great version of them. It just made them look so good. So that was when I first started playing with it. This is like the beginning of me playing with it. I burned through my free allotment like in 10 minutes, basically. But yeah, this really costs. I spend like $10-$20 a month or whatever on this.
Okay,
So
sir.
but I'm using it quite a bit, and I'm kind of
Yeah.
ideating things, and like I'm coming up with like cool art for articles and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I love MidJourney. Like I said, there's Stable Diffusion is another tool that I think requires you to stand up a virtual machine to run it, which is something I don't like to keep doing.
Yeah.
I actually came across a new one yesterday called Leonardo.ai, but I have not used it yet. Um,
I've seen people using it, Leonardo. Yeah, it's been there for a while.
right. So I just found out about it yesterday. It was in my thing. But we were also talking about Copilot. So we're talking about
Yeah.
developer stuff here, right? So
Yeah.
I went ahead and I wanted to set up like a little test here, right? So I actually wrote this file just before we got online, just to kind of double check, start from scratch. And I made this repo public, by the way. So if you go to GitHub, and my profile is doclub, DOCLUB.
Just search Chris Love GitHub. That should show up, right?
Yeah, it should show up. Anyway, the only thing I did was I wrote this prompt, and actually it finished the prompt for this comment for me. I started the main entry point to wrapper around AWS, and then it just finished Node.js SDK, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then I hit return. It wrote that comment, or hit return. It wrote that comment. Then it wrote this. Then it wrote that. Actually, it didn't write this first, but because I added this file later, and then it added that when I came back to it, right? But all of this, I just basically started hitting return, and it started filling stuff in, right? And basically the same for here too. All I did was I put this in here, and then I wrote the comp async method to return a list of buckets. Okay, so watch this. I want to write a comment, async method to return a
Yeah, that's
list
what I do. I
of,
love this feature.
yeah, here we go, objects in a bucket, right? Boom. See, it
Mm-hmm.
finished the comment for me. Hit return.
Yeah.
Boom. It knows the style of code I write. If I
Yeah.
wrote it using the const arrow function syntax,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
it would start doing that too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it says bucket name. I'm gonna hit that. Uh, Sometimes it actually will go ahead and just generate a whole function for me.
It does.
Right?
Yeah.
It depends. It depends, but it knows the style of code I write. So I like to have spaces in my code. So it's waiting for me to hit the space. right? And then I can just go down here, watch this, boom. How about that?
I love it.
And so I've got a basic thing here too. So what I could do here, I could even change this up
How about you
and say,
zoom, Chris? Zoom in.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. Boom.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for telling me that. Okay, so return a list of objects. Okay, but what I'm going to do here, I'm going to just comment this out. I'm going to say filter list of objects and only return the key. This is very good right here. This is something we're talking about JavaScript. Oh, and size. There we go. Okay, so boom, boom, boom. Isn't that great? And then I'm going to return boom. So then it finished everything for me.
Yeah, not great if you're preparing for interview, because in this way you're not going to even remember the syntax.
Well,
But
you
it
should
does
have
the
a decent
job. Yeah.
idea. I should be able, as a developer, I should understand what it's writing. But what it's doing for
Yeah.
me is the way I understand Copilot was trained. At first, it was trained on all the public repos in GitHub, and then it kind of emphasizes your code because it knows your account and it knows the repos in your account.
Yeah.
And so it kind of analyzes your coding style. And
Oh,
so
wow.
based on that, it makes the suggestions even more spot on to the way you would write. And I love that. And I love the fact that it can even work inside of comments. And I read this morning that they just updated it behind the scenes, and it's supposed to be like 5% more accurate or something. But
Yeah.
there is something else that's called GitHub Lens that's supposed to like improve it, but honestly, I found it did absolutely nothing in my opinion. So I took it out. Now, something that I found that is pretty cool, because I am terrible about writing unit tests for things, is it can write
Yeah.
the test for me. Okay, so I'm gonna do this.
Yeah. I want to see this. I don't like writing tests. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I want to
Okay.
see this.
Let's see what it does here. Okay. Uh, this is not what it did for me this morning, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the end, it is AI, not
Yeah. I
human.
don't. Yeah. Let's start all over. Okay.
We're gonna wrap this up, right?
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. We
Uh,
won't. We won't stop. People are gonna start cursing us in the comments.
okay. Here we go. All right. No, I don't like that. So I'm gonna say S3. There. Now it knows what I'm doing. Okay.
Yeah.
And then actually put in the assert library for me this morning. Let's see. So my style is this.
I think it's expecting more of a prompt.
Yeah, it was doing better this morning before we got on the call, but
Yeah.
maybe because I deleted it, it's like, well, maybe you didn't like that.
Oh.
Okay, so here we go. Oh, wait a minute.
Uh,
So if you look down here, I'm pointing, like you can see me pointing. If you look down in the bottom right corner, there's a little Copilot icon down there. It looks like a little mouse or something. And when it's spinning, that means it's thinking.
Oh.
You see how it's spin, and then it's done, right? Okay, so I don't know why it's doing that all over again, but yeah, okay. But yeah, you can have it just write a quick a test for you, right? And I actually have had to go through and do a whole battery of tests just by going through and just going return tab, which is so much better for me because, like I said, I'm very lazy when it comes to writing unit tests,
Yeah. I
especially
think.
using
Yeah.
this asserts and stubs. That's one thing I don't like about unit tests. I wind up having to mock and stub out all these dependencies, and it just takes forever, and it's pointless. So if I got something that can write all that code for me, even better. So, but yeah, I love this. And to me, this is not replacing me because I still have to understand how to write the application, how to architect it, how to decide what I need and want. But what it's doing is it's saving me so many keystrokes rather than having to write this entire function, which literally would take a minute or so. It did it in a matter of seconds, and it didn't make any typos, which I'm very bad about doing. So,
Yeah. I would
so
love to use this now GitHub Copilot to go ahead and create VS Code extensions. Uh, I would love to do that.
you
It
could,
can help me. Yeah.
yeah, you totally could. You could just have it provision out. Now I'm using it in VS Code, right? And it is an extension in VS Code. But there's also a plugin for Visual Studio, obviously. I think it works in Sublime, and I can't think of the what's the one for Java, the Eclipse. I think there's a plugin for Eclipse as well. If you go to the Copilot page, actually it'll tell us. I've got it up somewhere over here, right? Yeah, it should tell us which one's there. yeah, here we go. NeoVim and JetBrains. I think there's a couple
Hmm.
other that it actually can work in as well. So, but it's just, yeah, this is so. Uh, I was like very, very skeptical when I first tried it out. But it took me about a half hour to kind of figure out how it works. But
Hmm.
once I kind of got past that, and I had to, change, I was sitting there going, wow. If you just give it that few seconds, it'll come up with something usually pretty good. Sometimes it even comes up with multiple choices, and you can kind of hit the arrow key to go through different choices as well.
Hmm.
So I found it to be extremely helpful
Yeah, maybe.
with
Yeah,
writing stuff.
maybe the maybe like creating components, right? You want to create a functional component or a class-based components, right? If you're working with React or front end.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so. We are. I won't say we are running out of time. We are well over time. It was supposed to
I
be
know.
30 minutes. We only
That's,
1 hour and 10 minutes. What else, Chris? Do you would like to add when it's time to wrap it up? What else would you
um,
like to add? Any
well, I would
final thoughts?
encourage I would well I would encourage everybody to at least go try ChatGPT because it's free,
Yeah.
and I think if anything else, it's one of those things that could help you do research on stuff a little better. Um, Microsoft has been integrating essentially ChatGPT into the search results, but
Yeah.
like I said, they've really changed it up since it started getting into fights with everybody. I found it only lets me ask 2 or 3 questions before it says I'm done, stop. So I think they're working on its personality at the moment.
Hmm.
One thing that's going to be interesting to see what changes over the next year when it comes to that is how much the AI integration into search is going to change the SEO landscape.
Yeah, it
And
is.
so Mahesh and I have been having a lot of conversations about how we need to change CSharpCorner from that angle. Where can we add more value beyond just stuff that you might actually get from going to a search engine?
Yeah.
Um, the other challenge I want people to think about is how can you integrate this into the applications you're working on? How can AI enhance the experience with your applications? I'm not talking about just writing the code. I'm talking about the actual end users, the people you're writing the code for. Uh,
Hmm.
so my understanding is sometime this month, Microsoft is planning on rolling out an updated version of Office with the OpenAI stuff built into Word and
Wow.
Excel and
They
Outlook.
already have the designer thing for PowerPoint and all, right?
Yep,
Kind of AI there, but yeah, this thing coming in, right? It's open AI into PowerPoint and Excel. Excel would be great, right? What we can do with formulas and tables and
right.
graphs.
In fact,
Um,
I've seen a lot of videos. I don't do much in Excel. But I've seen a lot of
yeah.
videos on my YouTube feed where people are
Hmm.
using AI to automate Excel. Or
Yeah.
I don't know if they're integrating the OpenAI SDK or they're
Hmm.
actually just going to
I've
ChatGPT and
seen people
saying,
doing
give me
it, yeah,
stuff.
with the ChatGPT. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but from a developer point of view, I mean, this is great because now I can get code written faster and probably with better quality in the
Yeah.
end. But I would never think at this point that it's going to replace me because you have to be an
Not you,
architect,
but me.
right?
I don't have a knowledge like you.
Well, that's something that Mahesh and I were talking about too.
Yeah.
It may make the entry level much higher for a developer
Yes.
to
Yeah.
come
You're
in.
right. Yeah.
So you can't just be somebody who just understands the basic of the syntax of a language. Basically,
Hmm.
you need to be somebody who understands how to architect stuff just to come in and get going as a junior developer. I think
Yeah.
that's what is probably going to be changing in our industry is where the entry point actually is going forward. But that's been the case, I would say, ever since I started writing code. And you're gonna laugh. I wrote my first code back in 1981, I think. Uh,
81.
yeah,
You had
I was a
computers then?
yeah, we did. So I was so lucky. Uh, my teacher, and I think it was third grade. It might have actually been second grade. She got a TRS 80. We used to call them trash 80s.
Sounds like a dinosaur.
It was a big computer, not big, but it was small enough she could bring it from home to the school basically. And and from that day on, I learned how to code in BASIC because that's what everybody did back then was
Hmm.
BASIC. And I used to go down to the library. They had a TRS 80 in the library. So instead of playing, video games for a quarter. The library had it set up I could get a half hour on their computer to write code for a quarter. So
Wow.
they had books on writing and basics. So I would sit there and write games at the library, and I'd play my games that I wrote instead of going to the arcade and playing games somebody else wrote.
Wow.
So,
That's pretty
but
cool.
but you look at it, where were we back then coming into stuff, and that expectation has gotten higher and higher and higher over the years, I would say, because what we can do is improve so much and move. So as we say in the States, the goalpost keeps moving.
Oh,
You
it
have to
does.
you
It
have to
is.
you have to adjust so that you can still make the goal and the goalpost. You just have to know where the goalposts are moving and be ready for that. So, and I think this is a goalpost moving uh, thing. So if you are still writing code by hand, I would say in the next year or two, you're probably going to be left behind. You have to
Mm.
understand how to adapt and put this into your workflow. So,
Yeah,
like I said,
that's it. That's.
I've been doing code generation for almost 20 years. This is just
Mm-hmm.
the natural evolution of that process.
Oh, yeah. That's great, crazy. It was lovely having you, right? I don't think so we're gonna stop because after the show we have about the call in about 10-15 minutes once again, right? So we're
Okay.
gonna continue our chit chat over there. But it was lovely having you, Chris. You discussed a lot, right? From GitHub, then your code samples and ChatGPT, and also how you actually started with C Sharp Corner and your career. We're gonna get you back once again. I think we should do it at least once in a month, and we'll put a disclaimer that it's not going to be a 30-minute show. It's going to be kind of a 90 minutes or maybe 2 hours. We're going to do some chit chats, and everybody else can also join us next time who's ever tuned in.
Okay.
So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you,
Yeah.
Chris, once again. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
And we will see
And
you next. Yeah, go ahead.
well, the plan right now is for me to come over for the conference next month. So
Oh, yeah.
I should be in Delhi. I don't
Yeah.
think I'm going to be speaking at the blockchain stuff, but I'll
Uh,
be there for that.
Neither me.
Um,
I'll sit next to you.
yeah.
Bring your running shoes. We'll go
Yeah.
for a run.
All right. If I can run by then, I'm nursing a hurt knee, so we'll see.
Oh yeah, you did tell me that. Yeah, yeah. So take care. All right, then we'll see you back here, Chris, in India in just about a month, and yeah, we'll go and have fun. And guys, everyone, we're doing a Bcrypt conference. Just show up there. Look for the website bcrypt.live. Ta-da, everyone. Thank you so much. Ta-da. Bye bye.